मेरे ख्याल में सब आगे है। नमस्कार, आप सबका स्वागत है वेबिनार के लिए। ये वेबिनार जो है आज बिल्डिंग फायर्स और टेनेबिलिटी के ऊपर है। इसमें हमारे 3 जो है स्पीकर्स हैं, आप सब जानते हैं इनको, और इनको उसमें के लिए मैं मिस्टर आरसी शर्मा से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा वो अभी इसको कवर कर लें और वेबिनार शुरू करा दें। थैंक यू।
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, good morning, everybody. We just start today's program. Program is on building a fire tenability. Now, I think this is a
आरसी सर म्यूट हो गए।
Okay. So welcome to all of you, and I just start this webinar today. The subject, building fire tenability. So in this, we have got 3 speakers. We are going to start with Dr. V.K. Paul. He is the Dean Planning and Development in the School of Planning, Delhi. Next will be Mr. P.K. Rao. He is the former director of UP Fire Service. And the last will be Mr. Jairam Nayak. He is the director, AP Fire Service, Vijayawada now. So we will be just starting right now with Mr. Dr. Paul. And Dr. Paul, you can please go ahead. Try to see that we maintain the time around 25 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sharma sir. Thank you very much. I'll straight away go to the disabled. Okay, let's go to the topic state. First of all, I would like to thank my institute, School of Planning and Architecture, for giving the opportunity to share with you our thoughts on building fires and tenability. One has been looking at fire for a very long time, and we find that this particular topic of tenability has been largely kind of ignored, or it goes under the under some kind of background. But tenability, let's understand, it's basically a summation of it's a kind of amalgamation of various specializations, which includes toxicology, human physiology, that's how we react, human behavior, illumination, lighting, fire physics, fire chemistry, and building enclosure. So it's like a very complex kind of subject, where we are also looking at what situations can develop, and the building enclosures will vary from a tunnel to a small enclosure to a large hall, etc. If you look at the performance criteria, performance-based design, etc., tenability tends to be the fundamental premise on which a performance criteria is developed. It defines the hazard limit that should not be exceeded in any case. At the end of the day, we will look at one of the last slides of my presentation today. These are actually numbers. The point is not that what these numbers say, but the question is, how do you interpret these numbers in various occupancy risk specific situations? And that's what I will try to build in before we come down to the specific numbers towards the end. Tenability, as defined typically in a dictionary situation, is it's a quality of a state of being able to be upheld. Upheld means to be safe, believed to be safe all the time, and maintained to be safe all the time. So that's basically what we are looking at. How is it we are safe? The 2 terminologies in tenability, a bit of as a subject we will find. One is called as incapacitation, and the other one is a compromised tenability. Now, technically, all of them remain same. The reason why I brought these 2 terminology is that incapacitation is based on the animal experience experiments, where a particular agent is given animal is given an exposure, and then we look at how the animal would behave. And in case of human beings, the similar exposure, when it is given, then the human risk specific conditions for tenabilities are referred to as a compromised tenability conditions. Please remember that whatever we will talk, or I will talk, and subsequently we will discover here, this is all based on experiments on the animals, and then we kind of build our own story over that. Tenability as a criteria, we have basically three areas: toxic gases, smoke obscuration, and exposure to heat. All toxic gases, they are referred to as asphyxiants, and these are actually determined by the chemical composition of the materials. Sometimes, and I think somebody's got the mic on. Can you switch off, please? And some of these toxic gases also lead to the cause eye irritation, but that is actually also indirectly affecting the visibility problem as a result, which we'll discuss in terms of a smoke obscuration. Toxic gases are content and occupant specific. Occupant specific because some people will have impact of these gases much more than the others who are relatively healthy. Again, we will see in a few slides later. Smoke obscuration is specifically related to the visibility, and as the visibility gets affected, the ability to take the decision which way to go for exit or egress, that gets affected, and it also inhibits the movement. So it will take more time for people to travel, and we've seen the travel speed will actually come down to almost 1/3 in some cases. Then we have exposure to heat, very simple to understand. It's either heat stroke or pain on the skin, etc., and the respiratory tract burns, which is on the respirator as we inhale the smoke. We have, in order to deal with tenabilities, typically we have the smoke control systems in the buildings, and these smoke control systems, essentially from the tenability point of view, are the ones which help us maintain the tenability inside the zone, and the other ones are which do not allow the smoke to come inside the compartment or the space that we are talking about. So it's the smoke management system which essentially look at the tenability aspects. But again, it's important to understand here is the most of the smoke management system underlying assumptions, experiments, etc. They assume a smoke layer 2 meters above the occupancy level. That's actually pretty hypothetical or ideal, because we understand that 2 meters above is not possible in buildings. So basically, we are looking at the understanding from a situation where it's more of a hypothetical, and we are trying to relate it to the building level situation. So there is some kind of an interpretation level understanding that we need to understand. For last over 100 years, people have been looking at. Now, if you look at, as I said, the tenability becomes the fundamental premise for the building. There's a life safety in buildings. We're looking at people safety. And the life safety objective is defined to provide tenable environment of occupants to egress through, while providing the building occupants with an acceptable level of safety. So the acceptable level of the safety and the tenability requirements, these are the fundamental requirements where that's what the subject looks at. In terms of visibility, it causes obscuration. In visibility, we're looking at basically smoke density and the distance to which what we can see. Now here, the smoke density is actually an inverse relationship with the visibility. As the visibility, smoke density increases, the visibility will be reduced. So here, what has been understood is that there are two situations. One is in unfamiliar buildings where visibility of 13 meters is essentially talked about, and familiar buildings where visibility is 4 meters, and the small enclosures, visibility of 5 meters, large enclosures, visibility of about 10 meters. Now here again, the question is that when it is specific to enclosures, as we normally use understanding of fire safety in terms of National Building Code or other codal provisions, we do not classify buildings in terms of the familiar or unfamiliar or small enclosures or rather large enclosures. We define them as occupancy types, which means that when we are looking at occupancies, be that residential or any other things, we need to understand the people, whether these occupants are familiar. So if they are familiar, then the different yardstick will have to be applied in terms of how far they will be able to see. Therefore, this actually starts questioning the travel distances, etc., and their validity also. That's why the tenability is more of a concept for performance-based design, which is not a prescriptive. Again, here, as we understand, familiarity and the geometry are the two important aspects. Now, here, the smoke density and the visibility, one is that it is inverse relationship, and the second is it's an exponential relationship, which means that if I have to increase the visibility from X to 2X, the smoke density may have to be reduced maybe 10 times over. So it is not in the same proportion. So that is where there are two concepts that are talked about in smoke extraction. One is smoke management, one is extraction versus dilution. It is found or understood very clearly that the extraction works much, much better than the dilution in terms of a smoke density. Looking at the temperature, we are looking at hypothermia, wherein a person should be able to withstand certain hot conditions for about 15 minutes or so without getting affected. And before the body core temperature starts increasing. Now here, although on the right-hand side, we have this table wherein at different temperatures, the incapacitation in terms of minutes is written. But we also see here the respiratory tract, which is whatever, through which we inhale air, at about 60 degrees Celsius, if it is a saturated water vapor air, then that gets affected. So while we may say that in 60 degree on the right hand side table, at 60 degrees exposure, 10 minutes one can survive. But if the water vapor is present in a very, very large quantity, then that can cause severe damage to the respiratory tract. So again, we need to look at, and this is where in the literature very clearly says that sprinklers, if they do not perform to extinguish fire, they actually add to the moisture content inside, and that additional moisture can actually create a latent heat content in the compartment, and that can create a catastrophic condition. So one needs to look at the temperature, humidity, and to what extent one can actually withstand. As far as the toxicity is concerned, this is actually inhalation, and inhalation also starts affecting your impaired visibility, and the two start becoming start working together in tandem. The kind of the gases that we look at is a carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, hydrogen cyanide, hydrogen chloride, and some synthetic plastics and organic gases. Now, these gases essentially are referred to as, in a simple term, as narcotic gases. They affect your the nervous system. Out of all these things, that the three gases, carbon dioxide, monoxide, HCl, these are the main causes of concern, and the increased content also relates to the hypoxia, wherein the oxygen content reduces to less than 15, which is a very good situation in smoldering fire, and that can cause a huge life risk. Now, I'll just quickly glance through some of these three poisoning agents. Carbon monoxide, it actually attaches to our blood cells, and into the hemoglobin. When it attaches, it becomes carboxyhemoglobin, and when it is about a 15% content, then it has a minor effect. 25 to 30%, it has a serious effect. And what has been observed, very interesting, is that at about 15%, somebody appears to be fine, sitting in a very sedentary condition, but the moment he tries to get up or start doing into activity, immediately it collapses. So what appears to be okay in terms of your facial expression, but the body inside is a far much deteriorated or is incapacitated. So while we may say 15% minor effect or 35 reasonably serious effect, in between, for different people, it will cause different kind of impacts. It affects the tissues, and heart and brain cells, they start getting very, very badly affected. Weakness, etc., and arrhythmia, seizures, these are all very common consequences. Carbon monoxide, we all understand, and we normally expect it to be there all the time at about 5% concentration. The breathing becomes very heavy, and the increase in breathing allows more intake of other gases which are harmful. So it's not actually the 5% being okay, but 5% increasing is actually creating an exponential condition to inhale more of other gases. And that is something we need to understand. At about 10%, it will be unconscious. At about 30% concentration, and there could be a loss immediately. And the typical symptom of carbon dioxide is the heart rate increase. Tachycardia is what they say is a is when the heart rate is more than 100, and that starts causing the problem to the heart. The third one, which I want your attention to be slightly more in this particular issue, this is hydrogen cyanide, HCN poisoning, and it actually is referred to as carbon monoxide and carbon, this HCN hydrogen cyanide. They actually are present in more or less in the same stage of fire. They also happen in the same way, get released in the same way in the early and the later stages of fire, and that's why it is referred to as the toxic twins, and the symptoms together are more or less similar. So one would not be able to see whether it's carbon monoxide or HCN which is affecting. Now what I want you to kindly understand is that HCN has been one of the largest the causes of fatal conditions amongst the firefighters. And if I say, this is from one of the literatures I have quoted, it says that the firefighters tend to become disoriented, agitated, and lose focus, and they will misbehave. And sometimes people misbehave. People think that it's some kind of a psychological problem, but it's the actually HCN which has actually caused them to have a problem. And this particular issue has been found more or less in the terms in area times of overhauling, which is the last stages of fire. Now, HCN was also considered to be a big contributor if you remember, some people may remember Station nightclub fire, wherein flashover happened in 1 minute, and it was actually using polyurethane foam. So what is now suspected or advised is that all smoke inhalation victims should be suspected to have HCN. And mind you, HCN is not only being 35 times more toxic than carbon monoxide, it is in and around all our urban middle class living situations, wool, silk, cotton, nylon, plastic, polymer, foam, melamine, laminate, synthetic, they will all contribute to the HCN. So something very, very dangerous that we are looking at. In terms of a dose, how much of inhalation that actually happens, it is determined by dose accumulation. Now, dose accumulation means that how much is fatal for a person and what percentage of that has been exposed. Now, here, the reason why I'm going to bring this issue here is this dose accumulation, which is mentioned as a fractional effective dose, is based on the assessments or experiments conducted on animals. So all these numbers that we are looking at, toxic gases, etc., is based on the toxicological studies carried out on, not on human beings. You cannot carry out these studies on human beings. They are carried out on the mice and monkeys. So what we are looking at is these numbers coming from behavior of these small animals, and we are extrapolating that to human beings. So basically, when we say based on when a mouse exposure of from incapacitation, 30% of that is given, and therefore we are trying to determine travel distance, travel time, I think we are looking at some kind of a extrapolation, and therefore when we jump our decision on travel distances, etc., somebody needs to be very, very careful with that. This is very important to see the last one here, that if there is a concentration, X concentration for 8 hours, does it mean that it is 8 times X concentration for 1 hour? No. If the concentration is large for a, so concentration into time cannot be reversed if the time is more and the concentration is reduced, because that's where extrapolation is a bit dangerous. And we must understand that all these numbers that at the end of the year we are going to look at, they are also very, very subjective, and we need to interpret them very, very carefully. Therefore, what we look at is to what extent the tenability has been compromised. And in the terms of tenability compromise for individual, we need to also consider individual morbid conditions or medical condition that a person may have. Somebody looks good, will have no problem. Somebody has morbid conditions, breathing, asthma, that kind of a thing. Now, for that, the tenability will have a different meaning. So again, does it mean the same travel distance, same travel time, same level of exposure can be considered? No. And again, there are issues of human validation. We cannot extrapolate this data to human beings just like that. There was a fire, Mont Blanc tunnel fire in Italy and France border. They saw people in adverse conditions walk from 20 to 60 minutes. Now, what do we interpret out of that? Which means that we still have a large area of unknown. Again, if we look at the tenability as our main point of contention, then we need to look at available safe egress time, how much time I have to evacuate versus the required time for evacuation. Now this is A set and R set, available safe egress time and required safety egress. These are actually fundamental principles on which the performance-based design moves. So therefore, if you have a good understanding of tenability, we are more realistic on available A set and R set. Typically, people would make a problem. You would look at available time in terms of occupant, but the required time, we will still continue to be not moderated with the kind of risk and the people that will have. And here we have seen that the speed can from over 1 meter per second, it can actually drop down to 0.3 meters per second. Therefore, we need to be very, very clear. Again, as I mentioned, human response is very, very extrapolative. It is not wise. And we need to understand, understand these more carefully. Finally, this table, which all these literatures will talk about how much in people can stay in different conditions. This is all available in literature. But what I have tried to explain in the foregoing discussion is how to interpret and what are the limitations of each one of them and how we make our own decisions. And that interpretation, if you understand the other, the aspects which I discussed, then they have a different meaning altogether, especially in terms of the occupancy types. Finally, coming to the conclusions, a few conclusions that we can draw. Tenability, as I tried to explain, highlight, it decides the time of egress. Therefore, travel time is a tenability dependent. And therefore travel distance, although in prescriptive codes we may say this is 30 meter, 45 meter, etc., but that still needs interpretation, and that's where the the performance-based designs will look at the tenability and available and required set safe egress time as a fundamental understanding and input. Again, the assumption here, which is very, very critical, is considering certain height of smoke layer above the occupant. That actually is a fallacy. It doesn't happen. And if that doesn't happen, then again, the travel distances will have to be seen. We have seen the false ceiling at about 2.1 meter, 2.5 meter, or even 3 meters. 3 meters is one. So when we start reducing, do we really start looking at the effect on the travel distance? Absolutely no so far. So that's what we are I'm trying to highlight. Visibility affected by unburnt effluent production. Therefore, when we are looking at any occupancy, we also need to look at what are the kind of materials and the supportive ventilation that exists. For toxicity, we have to be aware of what kind of materials we have, some kind of a moderation that we need to understand, and the psychological phobic conditions, which are not even considered here. Some of our people here would be very, very claustrophobic, in confined places. So they are going to throw, things into a different gear all the time. So this psychological claustrophobic or phobic conditions, they are still not built into this kind of issue. They will also create a problem. And we have lastly, but not the least, there is a huge concern based on the blood samples taken of the victims and the firefighters who have been exposed to the toxic conditions. They have found that there's a long-term cancerous effect on these people, especially the firefighters. There have been studies of about 11,000 firefighters carried out in this University of Cincinnati, and it says that firefighters are exposed to this kind of a cancerous effect, and that effect is mainly because of hydrogen cyanide. So therefore, hydrogen cyanide is a much bigger enemy as of today. Thank you very much. These are a few things which I wanted to share with you. These are the references that have gone into this thing, and thank you very much. I hope I could make sense on this topic. Thank you very much, Jai. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Paul. I think it was a really knowledgeable talk so far, and we have really firemen, especially, they have been going through all these and experiencing all these effects of these gases and all that. Only thing which I get from this is that going into the situation like that, we always tend to breathe in some amount of smoke or gases. So the cumulative effect is going to be too much. So using the BS set appears to be one of the possible firefighters can think of, and that is very important. The next, I'll call Mr. Rao to speak and have his impression about this particular subject. Dr. Rao. Mr. Rao can take over, please.
सर आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
आ रही है। Please
अच्छा
go
सर,
ahead.
अपने उनको बता दीजिएगा पावर पॉइंट प्रेजेंटेशन स्टार्ट कर देगा। आई एम नॉट एबल टू
Oh.
स्टार्ट दिस पावर पॉइंट
Okay,
प्रेजेंटेशन।
okay, right. चलो साहब कराइए इसको, स्टार्ट कराइए उनकी पावर पॉइंट प्रेजेंटेशन।
सर पावर पॉइंट प्रेजेंटेशन स्टार्ट करने के पहले आई एम वेरी थैंकफुल टू इंस्टीट्यूशन ऑफ फायर इंजीनियर्स दैट दे हैव चोजन दिस सब्जेक्ट एंड दिस इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट सब्जेक्ट। Should I continue, sir?
You continue, please.
I am very thankful to Institution of Fire Engineers. They have selected a very nice chapter, which is a very much required for the fire services. This is related to life safety of the people and the firefighters and the rescuers. Because when you are entering in any fire, any building, you must know what is the hazards you are going to face for the occupants as well as to firefighters. Dr. Paul has explained very nicely these things, but it is approximately the same thing I am going to explain in something very in nutshell. Because everybody knows there is not a single set of values for tenability criteria which is universally accepted. So this is a very complicated subject, and that's why this tenability criteria has been not universally adopted or made to everybody. So there is a big chance to go for a research on human being, as Dr. Paul said that it was done on the mice, etc., monkeys, etc. But it should be done on the, if possible, it should be a very good chapter. It should be done research work on that. और इसके पीछे ये भी है, जैसे ये बताया गया कि टेनेबिलिटी में जब there are three main problems are there, like heat stroke, skin pain, like there is a three main, you can say there are four things main exposure to the occupants in the building fire. They are smoke, heat, toxic gases, and the mainly human behavior in the fire. Human behavior is also very important, and at least in India we have not done any research on that thing. Exposure to heat, everybody knows that after some time you will get the heat stroke, hypothermia, skin pain, burn, respiratory tract, burn, etc. Here they have given a data from a research institute for a naked skin, not wearing any uniform.
Screen, please.
Yeah.
Can you bring his screen? Share
Okay.
His screen. Yes.
Now
it is
visible.
Yeah, now it's visible. So there is not a single set of values for tenability criteria which is universally accepted. That's why we have to go for a new research work. Next, sir.
Okay.
There are four main things that should be taken care. That is a smoke, heat, toxic gases, and the human behavior in case of fire. Next, sir. This is the exposure to heat with naked skin. Means the firefighter is not wearing any protective clothing, and this data has been taken for the naked skin. Next, sir. This is a prolonged exposure, more than 15 minutes to heated environment. Exposure limit 60 degree to 120 degree. Heat stroke will be there. Skin pain and burns, exposure to convected heat, and water presence is less than 10% in the air, and up to more than 120 degrees Celsius, you will get the skin pain and the burns. Exposure to convected heat, water saturated area, more than 60 degrees, you will get skin pain and the burn. Exposure to radiant heat, exposure to conducted heat, we have not taken, and it's only 2.5 kilowatts per square meter and more than 60 degrees Celsius. Next. exposure to toxic gases. Mainly they are asphyxiant is the main cause of loss of consciousness and death in the building fire. Severity depends on the concentration and duration of the exposure. Next. This is a tenability limit. They have set that when you are exposed to asphyxiant like carbon monoxide, 6,000 ppm incapacitation and death will be 12,000 ppm. 30-minute exposure will be incapacitation and death will be 2,500 ppm. Hydrogen cyanide, 150 ppm incapacitation and death will be 250. As Dr. Paul said, this is the main problem. Hydrogen cyanide is also creating a problem for the firefighters because they are always exposed to this type of gases when they go for the firefighting. So we must and we can think to develop gadgets which can measure the presence of this type of gases when the firefighter is entering in the fire. So we can save the life of firefighters, and this must be known to every firefighter that this concentration will be very dangerous to them. It is 150 ppm incapacitation and death will be 250 ppm. And 30-minute, if exposure is more than 30 minutes, it will be 90 ppm incapacitation and death will be 170. Low oxygen, it is a very much known to everybody. If it is a less than 13%, it is a incapacitation, and if it is a less than 5%, death will be there. 30-minute exposure, 12%, less than 12% oxygen, and it will be incapacitation, and death will be less than 7%. Carbon dioxide, it is a more than 7% in the atmosphere. Incapacitation, death will be more than 10%. And in 30 minutes exposure, it will be more than 6% incapacitation, and death will be more than 9%. So we have to tell our firefighters or designers that this situation should not arise when there is a fire. They have to take care of this one. Next. Smoke obscuration, this reduces the visibility. And when the visibility is reduced, walking speed will be also reduced. Slow speed may increase the exposure limit. So we have to take that visibility should be maintained. So everybody walk in a designed speed, and so exposure will be less. In these conditions, the combustion gases causes irritation to eyes. They are mainly acid gases. HFCl, hydrogen bromide, sulfur dioxide, nitrous NOs, organic gases, formaldehyde, etc. So these are the presence. These are the gases present when there is a fire in the building. That should also be known to every firefighters and the departments also. Next, sir. Tenability criteria. As Dr. Paul also told, that tenability is mainly heat, smoke, visibility, and human behavior. That you have to be there in a safe manner. So primarily due to convection and radiation heat, we have not taken the conducted heat in this criteria. Because this is a very less chance to burn by the conducted heat. Respiratory tract burn occurs at the same limit. Whatever we have told that it is just skin burn, and the respiratory tract will be burn at the same design limit. So we have not taken this. Yeah, the environmental during the fire is less than 10% of water. As previously we have told, the primary occupants are carbon monoxide, SCN, and the upper limit are incapacitation thresholds. Next, sir. Oxygen concentration generally do not fall below 12%. That we have to ensure, or very low. The narcotic effect of the gases should not be there. So proper ventilation should, we have to design for the proper breathing atmosphere. Next, sir. The proper appropriate criteria should be depend on the smoke exposure, because smoke is having so many gases, irritants, etc. So that we have to mainly concentrate on or designing criteria on the smoke exposure only. Next, sir. There are three common approaches in order to increase the rigor are no exposure, short exposure less than 15 minutes, general exposure up to 30 minutes. Next, sir. No exposure means Dr. Paul said that it is very difficult to maintain the 2-meter height of any corridor, room, etc. So this is the ideal condition, but for the, if possible, we should design this height, because natural buoyancy is also there. For that 2.5, 2.8 meter height is required. Next, sir. There are three conditions. If it is a more than 2 meters, or second is breathing zone height between 1.5 meter to 2 meters, temperature ranging 60 to 120 degrees Celsius, visibility limit 5 to 10 meters, short exposures. Reduced visibility increase the exposure time to heat and toxic gases. That Dr. Paul rightly said that we have to think about the travel distance considering these points also. Next, sir.
No, sir, please try to.
Yes,
conclude.
this is the last, I think.
Thank you.
So there is a modern methods to assess the effective dose. This is a called fraction effective dose. Per minute or per certain period, we can calculate what is the exposure they have received. So this is the method by which when in a very small intervals we can calculate the exposure, etc. Next, sir. It's the same thing. It's a no problem. Fraction. This is a fraction effective concentration can also be calculated on this formula. Next, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And
Thank
lastly,
you,
I will tell that this is a very good subject, and in India there is no research work on this subject. So I will request to go ahead with this type of research work in India also. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Sir. I think it's a very comprehensive sort of things, and some of the things which were facts were also mentioned by Dr. Paul. So now we are having a third speaker also, Mr. Nayak. I think the job is will be easy for him because both the speakers have taken most of their points there. So I request him to try to conclude his topic in 10 minutes so that we have about 5 minutes for question answers, please.
Sir, good morning, everybody, and then Dr. Paul, and then P.K. Rao, my earlier speakers might have been covered. They have covered about the building fires and then tenability aspects is much more. As of my speak also, some of the points have been already covered. As Sharma have already told, don't repeat all these things. I will skip out all these things as quick as such, and then make justice for the 10 to 15 minutes of my talk.
Right, please.
Then, sir, actually, tenability building, any building is such, then a firefighter has to suffer a lot in by these toxic gases, and then is the heat, and then is the radiant heat, whatever with the temperature and toxicity, and then several issues, the fireman and the firefighter, and then occupants. Simultaneously, they are tenable about these factors about heat and exposure, about the gases and all that. Next. Already this is covered, and then exposure limits. I will come to the last conclusion, sir. There are certain points of design criteria because earlier speakers have been covered, and then design criteria about the design of the building. Building is as a safety aspects. I will cover some of the areas of this thing about what is the access for the building, and then it gives open setbacks, and then gives a minimum, and then not to exposure limits has been not to increase, and then there is some parking lots to the basement, maybe still, or otherwise any podium, or otherwise any multi-level parking, and then what are the services. There is a life safety code covers about the staircases, corridors, exits. These are some of the escape routes for the occupants, and then firefighting soft. This is a very, very vital added by the thanks to the NBC writers. Now 2016 gives very lot of safety point of the firefighting soft is a vital staircase gives for the firefighter safety and travel distance. This is very much vital coverage about the occupants to go to the nearest exit wherever they are in wherever the corridor, exit, escape route, or a door, or need, or something. And then compartmentation, it is to limitation or confined to the part of this buildings, and glass packet where you have to break the glass and then ventilate, and ventilation aspect, several building services and electrical services. There may be hazard and an alternative services supplies and design. As of now, the tenability aspect goes why this, sir. The conclusion has been made. As said, the tenability criteria is not fixed. The university is on particular values. There are different values that they have been fixed about this. About one of this presentation conclusion, and then this presentation is about the fire hazard system, and then associated with the tenability limits have been discussed, and then common design approaches may not be the possibility for this. They have to they sometimes they have to conservative approach, or sometimes a consistent approach has to be followed, and then values has been to be added by all this toxicology and visibility aspects and smoke management and compartmentation, and then this what is the doses, the FLV effluent doses has to be tolerable, and threshold levels and ppm levels has to be taken into the considerations. And there is a single set of values in the tenability criteria is not at all universally accepted. It have to go for our fire safety professionals, regulators, and authorities, or somebody has to agree the consistent approach, not by the conservative approach. The criteria design has to be followed. And then we know that there are some case studies and experiences about some Kolkata in hospital fires. We know that there are about the smoke has been started with these staircases and goes by the entire building and propagation, and then confinement of the areas, and then a lot of death toll occurred. All these tenability aspects, as Dr. Paul said, is a very much coverage, and our PK Rao sir covered the tenability aspects about limitations, heat, exposure, temperature, visibility, and smoke layers. And then last, there are typical buildings. Typical buildings and unique buildings. There are certain locations. The active smoke part, tenability criteria for the unique buildings are not covered in the earlier my speakers. This is the active smoke control systems have been adopted. No, earlier. Yes. Active smoke control systems are required to be provided in the atriums and underground malls and pressurized smoke enclosures and many other applications. And the smoke control systems and containment areas, systems has to be designed to the smoke ventilation and keeping in view of that entering about the adjacent zone, one zone to the other zone by the compartmentation. And then the systems are typically based on the maintaining the pressure levels in the compartment or a different zone, or the cross barriers or the fire barriers. And then another type of systems is the smoke management is designed and maintainable conditions have been looked into the zone criteria, what are the limitations of that and concept of the tenabilities. And then later system is typically based on the smoke exhaust or the smoke venting and the smoke wetting. As originally it is designed to have the smoke layers interface about the 6 feet and whatever the tolerable level of 6 feet as the human height level, head level, that is always comfortable and then reasonably valued for the to escape from the occupants from the building. This approach assumes the ideal paper and the smoke layer is lower to the system, sir. And then finally, I will cover about my conclusion part of last this thing. Wherever are common state applicabilities are there in the tenability criteria, and wherever much more congregations or assembly buildings, there is occupancy trapped in a longer period of this because of the crowd and then because of confusion and human behavior in the fires. They should have to maintain these tolerance levels and toxicology and tenability limits. The temperature tenability criteria based on the exposure level of this hyperthermia levels. And finally, I will just conclude with there are certain codes has been covering about smoke management in the NFPA 92 and NFPA 130 for the passenger rail trains and then 90 for the atriums. And the standardization, just as a final conclusion, it has been the standardization has to be followed in the tenability criteria as a big step towards the consistent creating the adequately designed smoke control systems and then provide a minimum level of safety to the occupants. And finally, and then they may be applicable and may be applicable or maybe conservative at certain times, or otherwise the consistent or standardized type has to be followed in the tenability limits. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity for the IFE India. That is namaste. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nayak. Thank you very much. I think, friends, we had 3 good presentations and we have got learning from them, trying to assimilate the 3 learning for 3 areas. One, architect, designers, and consultants. This one is we need an effective smoke management system. How you do, what you do is immaterial for us, but that is a very much essential requirement for a fireman to enter the building, because they may have to enter maybe 30 times a month, or maybe more than that, and maybe throughout the 1 year, and maybe in the life, how much gases and toxic things they consume. So it is for them to understand that what is the importance of the breathing apparatus for entering into a building which is already having smoke. So it's a cumulative effect of that is going to be there. Learning for the firemen is that's what importance of using BSET. Without that, we are going to put ourselves in a trouble. Maybe for a longer time, longer duration, we can have these effects. And Mr. Nayak has said that following the sort of a design of effective smoke management. I had a problem in my kitchen. The chimney was not working. So everybody is having coughing and all that. And so I said, okay, do one thing, close all other doors, start and cooler. So cooler is started, and we opened the door of the kitchen, and the chimney is working. There is a small window also, the wire mesh is there on that sort of a duct. And you see in half a minute, things are clear. So to that extent, this is what I understand, practical use of the things, whatever we can think of. So I think the importance of the smoke management is very much essential, and you call it as a tenability for the fire service people and for others. Users of the building, they have to, maybe once in a lifetime, they get an opportunity to get trapped and they get out. So effect on them will be not much, provided they are able to get out quickly, and they find it is very important to maintain the smoke-free environment. And here comes the need of early warning system, things to be maintained, informing them, and they should be able to get out, and the means of escape, availability, and unlocked, and so many things. I think this is what we can have some questions if they are there. Few minutes are there for us. I had some questions, yes, I mean, which has already come to me. This is relating to not really this subject, but this is on acceptability of jet fans for the smoke management system. I think as per in place of ducts, well, there are certain limitations as I understand, because if height of the floor is not much, there are beams and columns, so that may be affecting the ductless system. I have physically seen the similar thing provided in Singapore somewhere. I've gone for some other seminar, and I saw that the system is very effective, but there the height of the basement for parking was about 4 meters. So as we were speakers were talking about the space available for this, that is very important. And if that much height is available, probably we have got longer time to get out and probably manage the things also. Second thing was a fire tender access 6 meters around the building on 2 sides, or 9 meters turning circle. Well, that is very much there, and there it is mentioned that about 40 meter, 9 meter and 12 meter turning circle. Well, in Delhi, they do have building bylaws also. So in the bylaws, they have mentioned that there's a 9 meter access around the building for the fire engines, and 12 meter turning circle. Now, turning circle is the from the corner of the building to the outer edge of the fire engine, or your track, or whatever you call it. So in an arc should be there of that 9 meter. So that is the thing. But now, if you have got your building bylaws, that takes I mean preference over your whatever other things you are having. But otherwise, NBC says 6 meters, so that is actually a 6 meter approach and 9 meter turning circle. Hard green acceptable, yes, for the movement of fire engines. In Delhi, we have been accepting, so long as they are having some green space also, in addition to that available of that particular area for movement of fire engine. I think we need movement of fire engine. If they are in that process, they are able to get some green also, I think we need to accept it. So somewhere it is, maybe, I don't know, it is depends upon the people who are looking into these areas. And the last question was, having this your fire tower, single for one fire tower for one block, or can we share the fire tower between the 2 blocks? Well, my opinion is, fire tower is one of the means of escape. And in means of escape definitions also, from any side, you should be able to reach to the means of escape. One of this has to be a fire tower, or whatever is your escape staircase. So that being the reason, if it is approachable from 2 sides, I think that should be acceptable. That's my opinion. Any other questions, please?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I am Atul Srivastava. I am not a safety professional, but I am a fire protection engineering and safety engineering professional for last 36 years in oil and gas industry. And my question is actually not a technical question. You people are all well versed, and I am benefiting from listening to your talk. My question is more policy matter. You know, I have investigated many incidents, including the fire incidents, and we find that many incidents start due to lack of awareness of the building residents. And we find in our profession that the first time our employees come to know about fires and safety in general when they join the companies and they get the formal orientation. So my question is, was there any effort made to introduce general fire safety awareness or safety awareness in general in our school curriculum? Let's say
Yes.
20 hours compulsory fire and safety awareness course before people can be allowed to take high school examination. So was it, I say in many schools it is optional, but it is not mandatory. So if awareness is there right from the teenagehood, then the life of our valiant safety
Yes,
professionals
I think perfectly right. Your point is well taken. I think there is nothing important than awareness. It is for everybody, all of us. And we see that if somebody is aware, probably things which have gone bad to worse can be avoided. And this is there. There is a system of education. They have got some syllabus in some 7th, 8th, 9th standard. And it is there. I think Education Department, Government of India, MHA also has issued certain guidelines. And while framing the guidelines of this school safety, in fact, some of the things were not required there, but we try to introduce like downcomer and hose reel, even for there's not much of the risk, so that people see those things and students, they can be aware of that. And then awareness of that is something, in fact, the schools, they are told to make the children aware. And in Delhi especially, we had a system of even the KG lower class children to be brought to the fire station nearest fire station, show them fire engine and the way they function and all, just an awareness. So you are perfectly right. I agree with this. And the awareness programs are there, not really sincere. But we do have in fire service, like Fire Service Week. 1 week they conduct in the schools and different areas. But it has to be a daily routine sort of thing for everybody. I mean, going to your place, like cinemas, well, we had some incidents, and we do have a system that mandatorily they should indicate what are the available means of escape in the cinema hall, what they should do and all about. So like that, if that sort of thing is further strengthened, it's going to be very important area, yes.
So, sir, you are saying it is mandatory or it is optional? It is school to school dependence?
School to school, no, in fact, thing is, because mandatory means it is not in the sort of act that if somebody has to do, if they do not do, then there is a provision to check it and do some punishment. That part is, I think, not there. But so far as communication to them is there, see, the thing is, everybody goes by the what is the importance, like in the industry, it is the output important than the fire safety and other, that is secondary. So in the schools, hardly anything is there. So this is a way that, yes, the things have been circulated in our terminology of the government. If you issue a circular, this should be done. That should be mandatory. It's my feeling.
I do agree with you. Only thing what I'm trying to say here is, as you know very well know, incidents don't happen every day or everywhere. And because there is maybe one small weak link in our society, and that is the cause of all the incident. So because it is not mandatory, some people take it easy, and those are the citizens who later on come and cause problems. So if we reach the Ministry of Home Affairs and say, let's make 20 hours compulsory before a high school examination can be allowed, something, because in our country, life,
one area, yes, I think there's a need for that. And I'll request IFE can just take up this and with maybe Ministry of Home Affairs, and so that they can strengthen further system in this particular regard. I think, thank you. It's a valid.
Thank you.
For the information.
Time left for this thing. Questions?
There's no time, but then I want to just inform the gentleman who was asking us. The IFE is going to schools, different schools in Noida, Delhi, and all these nearby area to apprise the students about the fire safety. And we do it occasionally, say about after every 2-3 months, and we take permission from the school principals, and we go and we provide them the facilities. We show them how the fire extinguishers are being operated, and what are the safety measures, and how to get out from the buildings, the school building, when there is some emergency. We are taking this point, and with all this, मेरी तरफ से IFA की तरफ से सब
okay. I think thank you, Mr. Chiller, and everybody else here that allowing me to be sharing my distinct views on that and be a part of this program. Thank you very much. Please go ahead with your.
Thank you, sir. आशीष शर्मा साहब, साथ तीनों स्पीकर्स और शर्मा साहब और जितने भी बंधु लोग आए हैं, सबका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. और अगले 15 दिन के बाद फिर एक हम वेबिनार करेंगे. उसके लिए भी कोई अच्छा सा सब्जेक्ट चुन के आप सबसे मैं टेलीफोन पर बात करता हूँ. और 15 दिन के बाद फिर यही टाइम अपना शनिवार को 11 से 12, and that will be a good subject.
Chiller sir.
जी सर.
Chiller sir. चिल्लर सर, एक छोटा सा सवाल डॉक्टर पॉल से पूछना चाह रहा था। सवाल नहीं, एक गाइडेंस चाहिए था। डॉक्टर पॉल सर, ये जो अभी कोविड का सीजन चल रहा है, इसमें हमारे डॉक्टर्स फेस मास्क पहन रहे हैं, कई लेयर के फेस मास्क, ऊपर से प्लास्टिक कवर पहन रहे हैं, एंड दे आर वर्किंग फॉर मोर देन 6 hours ए शिफ्ट ड्यूटी विदाउट ए ग्लास ऑफ वाटर। मेरे दिमाग में ये बात बैठ नहीं रही है, जबकि हम इतना इसके बारे में बात कर रहे थे, कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड पॉइजनिंग, कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड पॉइजनिंग। जब हम छोटा सा फेस मास्क भी लगा के बाहर जाते हैं, सांस लेने में दिक्कत आती है। कहा जाता है मॉर्निंग वॉक में भी आप जाएंगे तो आप फेस मास्क हटा लीजिए, अदरवाइज यू विल गेट गिडीनेस, यू विल गेट हेडेक, एंड मे बी बिकॉज ऑफ कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड saturation will go high. I want to understand, without breathing apparatus, without any system of fresh air supply, how these doctors, nurses, medical support people are working for more than 6 hours and with full dedication after they are playing with human life. So don't you think it's a subject now very important to be studied, that what exactly human physiology goes when this excess of carbon dioxide goes into yourself, and up to what percentage?
Sir, actually, yes, this is, I mean, on the prima facie, there is a question that if the mask is retained for a longer duration, and there will be a possibility of higher inhalation of carbon dioxide, because you will be actually exhaling the same. But however, there are two types of masks that these doctors wear. One is N95, and the other one are, which they call it a surgical masks. The PPE that for 6 hours that they normally wear, they use N95 masks, which have the filter attached to it. That filter, for the kind of physical activity they do, see, it's more of a mild physical activity, not really a sedentary. So to that extent, there is whatever is the respiratory inhalation requirement. To that extent, that filter allows that kind of the fresh air to come in after filtration also. But we don't really know what is the art and science of that one, but that specification is a very valid and approved specification. So that's where they tend to look at. So but on the prima facie, it does appear to be a question.
Yeah, Dr. Paul.
Since
the time is not there, I have 1 minute.
And 95 is individual. They are not putting other face mask. If you really look into the...
I'll say just a minute. So the thing is, because a lot of air is there in the mask, which is recirculating, going, because when we are in open, we are exhaling.
6 hours, sir. 6 hours.
1 minute. Yes, 1 minute. Sir, 1 minute. Sir, let me complete. Yeah, I agree. What you say is 100% correct. Thing is, once we are exhaling in open, whatever things is there between our nose and the lungs, that is going back. But when you're going to a mask, then more area is going back. So yes, you can think of having, like we used to have our inspection BA set, oxygen set, small cylinder.
Yes.
Have that attached to that, release some amount of oxygen into the face mask, because so long as they are there, I think something that can be thought of. You're right, because inhaling that carbon dioxide a little longer and long-term effect, 6 hours, maybe daily, it may have adverse effect. Certainly right. Point is to be taken care of by the doctors. I think we are not the doctors in that sense, but yes, you're right.
No, not only doctors. What I'm saying is,
excuse me, sir. Mr. Cherry, please excuse me. The time is over. Next time I'll keep you half an hour for you, because your doubts are, you are always doubtful about something.
Oh yes, good.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you.